All right, I'm in.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am Coach Lone Wolf, and I'll tell you what, Lone Wolf. There's a lot to talk about. Not just NFL. Um, we got coaches throwing shade at other coaches in college basketball.
Oh
We
yeah.
have, we have a premier player in the NBA asking to be traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Uh, we have somebody claiming the Browns can win the Super Bowl and that the NFC is actually a very difficult out and could get two teams in the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot to cover. Plus, we have keep them or leave them, the hot seat, and something new I added,
Okay.
the Beavis comment of the week.
Oh, I love it. I love it. For those that know, yep. For those that know, that's a good one.
So,
Yep. Beavis. Yeah, that's good.
so you know, we traditionally go through every game, but again, I think it's a waste of time to go through
Yeah.
every game. I know you've picked out a couple games you want to hit on. We'll
We
do
did.
that.
Yep.
And if there's any that you don't bring up that I wanted to make comments on, we'll do
Yeah.
that.
You can feel free and go
But
ahead, but
but I really don't want to go through the entire thing because there's a lot going on in the world of sports right now. So you can take it off with this NFL Week 14 matchups. Just a quick heads up: Rams are up 17-3 in the third quarter on the Patriots. So
yeah, and that was one of the ones that I was gonna say we should talk about, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on that one. Partly because it's a fairly decent matchup, and partly because it's tonight's game. Um, I thought coming into this game, there was a lot of people giving the Patriots a lot more credit than they probably deserve. They shellacked the Chargers, and people are like, "Oh, the Patriots, the Patriots." They really don't look that impressive to me, and they are losing in this game and the Rams are handling them quite easily. So it's an important game for the Rams, and that's kind of why I wanted to mention it because they need to keep ahead of the Seahawks in the West. But it's going to be a Rams victory all day long.
yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Don't get excited that the Patriots beat up on the Chargers. They beat up on the Chargers.
Right.
Yeah, people lose sight of the context of who teams play, and we'll get into that. I think
Yeah.
later on with some of this other stuff. The context of who teams play. You played the Chargers. Plain and simple. You played the Chargers. There's nothing else to say about it. So, yeah,
Right.
this is going to end the Patriots' playoff chances. They would need to come back, win tonight, and not lose another game to even have a shot. So, a loss tonight, they could still finish 9-7, but there's no way 9-7 is getting them into the playoffs in the AFC.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Not with the other teams that are sitting out there with the records they have. So, okay, and this to me is one of the most important games on the schedule, and that's Vikings Bucks. This one I think is key because if you're the Bucks, it feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. I did read something that said, and this is ridiculous. Well, of course they're going to side with Tom Brady, and Bruce Arians will be gone at the end of the season if this continues. And I was like, okay, if you really think that that's going to happen, that's kind of ridiculous. But this game too for the Vikings is also very important. They need to keep their playoff hopes alive right now. They're in the driver's seat. They have the edge on the Cardinals, I believe, in how the playoffs shake
Yeah.
out. So, but for the Bucks too, I mean, they're 7-5. You know, if you lose another game, you're 7-6. You've got all these other teams sitting out there that are breathing down your neck. Um, this is a very, very important game for both of these teams as we move forward, and a good test for both of them too.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's important for both teams. I don't know if it's a good test. Again, context of last week, the Bucks had a bye week. Brady
Yeah,
is always phenomenal coming out of the bye week, and you had to go to overtime to barely beat the Jaguars. If it wasn't for a really ill-timed interception in overtime, I think the Jaguars would have won that game. Um,
well, and they're 1-11 for a reason.
and they're 1-11. And
Yeah,
that's again context of the
right.
game. Um, it's great that for the Vikings that they came back. They're in this position, but they have a tough road. I believe they
Yeah.
have the Bucks, and I don't think it gets. I know they have to play, I believe, Chicago, Detroit, but
Well, we'll take a look real quick. They play
and
the Bears.
they
They
have to
play the
play the Saints.
Saints. They play the
So,
Saints.
so here's the thing: you have the Vikings in order to they have to beat the Bucks, Bears, and Lions. They're not going to
Right.
beat the Saints because Drew Brees will probably be back by that game. To
Right.
be honest, that is a game the Saints are probably going to be coming off of a loss to Kansas City, and they're going to be battling the for the top slot in the NFC
Right.
with
With the
the
Packers and,
Packers.
and maybe another team or
So
two.
they
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it's in New Orleans, so in all intents and purposes, I mean, anything can happen. But I think if Minnesota loses this game, their playoff hopes take a huge hit. Not saying that, it's
They
over,
may still
but
make
it's
it.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
very big uphill climb um, the rest of the way.
Right. And honestly, I think the Bucks will come out and they'll win this one. I mean, I know there's been issues in terms of what's going on offensively there, but I don't think it'll matter. The Vikings defense isn't really that great. They've played a couple games great because of how they've been coached, but I don't think their defense is really that great. And Brady, if he has enough time, will just destroy them, and that's what's going to happen in this game. I think he's going to just slice and dice them.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. I absolutely agree. I think this is going to be a really good game offensively for the Bucks. That Viking defense is beat up. So Bucks win.
Bucks, yeah, yep. And so then the next game on the schedule that I had is Chiefs Dolphins. Um, this one, I think, it's a good barometer for the Dolphins. This is a year where they've turned things around. They're in prime playoff position. They're only a game out in their division. Um, and it's a good test whenever you're playing. To me, what's the best team in the league here? The Chiefs are the best team, and I think it's probably going to be a good test for their defense because they've been winning games because of defense and special teams. Their offense has played all right or good enough to win a lot of games. And that's good for the regular season. You're probably not going to do as well in the playoffs, but it's a good barometer. If the Dolphins can somehow win this game, I think people's feelings about them might change. But I don't necessarily see that. I think the Chiefs are probably going to win, but it's an interesting game nevertheless, and a good matchup, I think.
Well, I don't know how good of a game it's going to be. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I know the Dolphins' defense is good, but I I want to see this game. Everybody, because of the gaudy yardage stats that Tua had last week,
Right.
are just gushing over this guy again.
Yep. They're proclaiming
And
him to be the next Mahomes, right?
I mean, come on. You
Yeah.
know,
He's played 6 games. I mean, whatever it is, it he just hasn't played that much. Context. It just yeah.
this is going to be a good barometer on where Tua is
Yeah.
as a quarterback. Again, I want to see him against the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Bills, the Saints, the Packers.
Right.
If you're starting to put him in the breath of Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, this next generation of young quarterback,
Right.
he better show it early on. And don't say, well, he's a rookie. Well, exactly. He's a rookie. So you don't sit
So
there and,
stop comparing him to the best that's ever played, and
right.
stop saying he's the next Dan Marino, because you can't flip it around in the next breath and say, oh, but he's a rookie.
So now, would I be surprised if the Dolphins win? No, because I think that defense is legit.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't want to hear is if the Dolphins win because of their defense, I don't want to hear how Tua led them to victory. And
Right.
that's what you keep hearing. Look what Tua is doing for the Dolphins. It's the defense. It's the defense. Um, the defense is what's gotten the Dolphins where they are, not
Right.
Tua. Now, one thing I want to bring up, your man, Mr. Flores,
Yep.
and I like him. I think he's a great coach. I think he stepped out of bounds during this game. When he went out to midfield and started to get in the face of a player of the opposing team because of an
Mm-hmm.
incident that happened on the field, I lost some respect for him.
Right.
It might be, a cheap shot. It might be he said something, and some people said, "Oh, he's defending his players," and but there's a way to defend your players, but you put yourself in jeopardy of getting kicked out of that game and then
Right.
possibly suspended by the league for involving yourself in that kind of situation because he initiated that.
Right.
It wasn't that he just got caught up in the middle of us like a squabble on the sidelines. He went out and initiated this. I have an issue with that. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you do when you saw that or heard about it? What was your first gut reaction? Not what you think about now. What was your
Yeah.
first gut reaction?
When I first saw that, I was like, what the heck are you doing? That was my first gut reaction. And I'll just say this: I don't want any coach in the middle of the field at any point in time. I don't want it. I don't want to see it at all, because you are right. You may get caught up in the heat of the moment, and I think that's what it was here. But you are risking something for your team when you do that. So my instant gut reaction was, why the heck is he? Why the heck is he on the field like that? Now thinking about it, I still feel the same way. I know I really like him. Obviously, I think he's a great coach. Um, but I think this was a misstep, and you can't do those sorts of things because you could cost your team. So he's got to think about that. He's got to think, okay, I can't let my emotions get the better of me in those situations, because I have to be the head coach. I have to be out here for this team.
Right, and that's the thing. All my years of coaching, um, I have never even, and I've gotten in the heat of the moment, and I've never ever. I mean, it might have taken one or two steps onto the field to get the
Right.
attention of a ref, or to point something out. But I
Right.
never walked onto a field and got in the face of an opposing player.
No.
So that was my biggest beef um, with that, is that shouldn't have done it. Yeah,
But
I understand you're defending your players, but there's a better way to do it. And he is better be thanking the league that they did not penalize him for that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, you work the officials, you do what you have to do, you make your case, but you don't do that to another player. You don't do that to an opposing player. I agree 100%. Yep.
all
Got to be
right.
smarter than that. All right. So the next
Moving
game
on.
on the schedule here is Cardinals Giants, and this has playoff implications for both teams. Believe it or not, the Giants are in the lead in the NFC East. Who would have thought? With Washington right there, they're both at 5-7. And then for the Cardinals, a team that had moments this year that were amazing, but then they've had some real clunky games that have looked awful. Um, and they're sitting there at 6-6, and they're just on the outside edge looking in right now. So for both of these teams, either way, you lose this game, it's definitely hurting your playoff chances. I think if the Cardinals lose, it hurts their playoff chances more than if the Giants lose, personally, because I think you can still probably make up some ground. Washington is playing better, but they may still drop one here. But as the Cardinals, if you lose this game, it's going to be tough. I don't know. It just seems like they wouldn't make the playoffs if they lost this game. I could be
Well,
wrong about that, but I just feel like they're
well,
trending in the wrong direction.
the reason it hurts the Cardinals more than the Giants is that the Cardinals have to get a wild card.
They do, yeah,
If the
yeah,
Giants lose a game, they could still win their division.
right,
That's the difference.
yeah,
Um, the Giants have the Cardinals, the Browns, Ravens, Cowboys left. The best they're going to do in that stretch is 2-2.
yeah,
Um, and compared to Washington, and this leads us to the comments that I was listening to, where people are saying that the NFC East is going to be a tough out in the playoffs. Um, oof, I almost felt I almost drove off the road the first time I heard it because I started laughing so hard. Um, I don't get how you can say that when you're champion. I get it; they're playing better football, and people again they're going off of yes, New York went they upset Seattle. Well, let's be honest, Seattle's been playing subpar football for the last month. They haven't been playing well. Yes, you beat them, but they didn't help themselves out. Washington beat Pittsburgh.
right,
Well, we'll get into that in just a minute.
yeah,
But back to that game. So, why it's so important for New York to win to try to stay in the division. Washington has the 49ers, which they may win that game, then
right,
Seattle, Carolina, and Philadelphia. So I think Washington can go 3-1. So I give the edge to Washington to win that division. That's why this is a huge game for the Giants because they
yeah,
have to
huge,
hope
yeah,
that Washington follows suit if they lose and loses to the 49ers.
right,
Um, if the Giants lose this game and Washington beats the 49ers, I think it's over because yes, Washington, probably should on paper lose to Seattle, but they're going to beat Carolina. I think Christian McCaffrey's probably going to shut her down here the rest of the year. He's out again this week now with a calf injury, and the guy can't just can't get
I
healthy.
don't know why you wouldn't shut yourself down
What
at this
why
point.
play? I
The
mean,
season's done, and don't risk injury and come back
right.
next year. I mean, that's the safest bet. Yeah,
And then you got Philadelphia, who's in just a mess,
yeah,
right?
an absolute
So,
mess. Yeah,
so that's why it's important. Now, who's going to win? I'm gonna
right.
pick the Giants.
Okay.
They're playing better defensively, and unless Kyler Murray and Hopkins can start get that spark back, um, this I don't even know if this will be close. Um, yeah, I'm not a really big fan of the Giants' offense, but I think
No.
unless Arizona's offense starts clicking, the Giants' defense is going to have a heyday.
Yeah,
So,
and I think people made a big deal about the game because Colt McCoy played, and they just spaz out if it's like a backup quarterback can't go in and beat a better team on the road,
well, you got to
which
remember,
yeah, they actually can.
Colt
They
McCoy was
can
the
do that.
starter in the league for a while.
Yeah,
So, it's not like he's horrible.
right. I mean, you look at it and you say, okay, he's not the best. No, obviously that's why he's the backup, but he's not an inexperienced nobody that you're throwing out there. So I think this is the week when the Cardinals figure out their offensive woes and are able to pull this one off. I do agree the Giants played well. Obviously, they beat the Seahawks, but I think the Cardinals right the ship and win this game. Kyler Murray and Hopkins and company get on the same page, and they win this game.
All
So
right.
that brings us to our next one. Another huge game for both of these teams: Colts versus Raiders. Um, both of these teams are
I'm in
jockeying for
the
position here.
Colts. Colts. The Colts.
Okay.
The Raiders should have lost to the Jets. Colts. I'm not even going to comment anymore on that. The
Okay.
Colts are going to beat the Raiders by 13. I don't even think it's going to be close.
Okay. I mean, I picked the Colts as well. I think the Raiders are trending in the wrong direction, getting destroyed by the Falcons, and then almost losing to, dare I say it, the Jets. Yeah, I think the Colts will win that game. Next game, Steelers versus Bills, and this is a big one. So if I'm a Steelers fan at this point, Coach, you tell me what you think. If I'm a Steelers fan, I am concerned about this team. Um, and I know they lost one game, and people were like, "Oh my God, lost Washington," blah blah. But there's deeper issues that I see with this team, not just them losing to Washington. Then there's some things that are of concern throughout the rest of the season, and maybe even in the postseason. They are really, really, really struggling to run the football, and they lost Bud Dupree, so their pass rush is not what it was. Um, that's a very big concern. Both of those things are a big concern to me as we go down the stretch. The Bills are playing great football right now. They played really, really well against the 49ers. Josh Allen looks dialed in. I think the Bills win this game, and the Steelers' woes continue, in my opinion. This isn't just an easy, quick fix for them. And they may be lingering issues unless they can figure out how to run the football better going into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean the issue with the Steelers, their offense is right now very putrid. They can't run the ball. They've dropped, I believe, 10 plus passes combined the last couple of weeks, and so those are drops. Those are the passes they should have caught.
Oh,
Uh,
well, and yeah, you look at that Ravens game. I mean, there were 6 passes, I think, that were drops or 7. Ben put it on the money in those throws, and they just flat out dropped them.
yeah, um, the league does not help them out any with bowing down to Baltimore and allowing the game to be played on a Wednesday and then giving Baltimore till Tuesday and then the Steelers till Monday. It wasn't even a Monday night, it was Monday afternoon. So, if I'm Steelers front office, I'm filing a grievance against the league because the schedule
Yeah.
changes totally favored Baltimore um, in both cases and did not help the Steelers out at all. So I understand you got guidelines, this and that. You know what? You have guys out, make roster moves, and get a lineup out there. I don't care if you're playing Joe Schmo from down the street who's baking groceries. Not my problem.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah.
we're here to win football games. So, but yeah, Buffalo's playing really well. Unfortunately, the Steelers are beat up. James Conner will be back. That should help. But the receivers need to learn how to catch again. I'm gonna pick Buffalo in this game. Also, I don't think they have. Pittsburgh has enough offensively to consistently beat the defense of the Bills.
Mm-hmm. And just a final thought there too. Defensively, this is that lingering issue I mentioned with Bud Dupree out. That this just makes their pass rush much less effective. And so wherever TJ Watt is lining up, they're going to be keenly aware of that, and allow Josh Allen to roll out and do what he needs to do to be successful. So, okay, last game that I had was Ravens versus the Browns. This is chock full of storylines, in my opinion. Um, and you and I are going to talk about this. We talked about it a couple different times, but the Ravens go out and they beat a clearly inferior team, and everybody is all back on the Lamar Jackson bandwagon, and they're so good, and I can't believe this, and da 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 da. No, stop right now. Pump the brakes and stop. They played one of the teams in the league that has one of the, if not the worst defense in football. And it's not like the Ravens went out there and put up 50 points on this team. So I was not impressed. The Ravens are not, quote unquote, back. They needed this win. Don't get me wrong. They needed to right the ship because they had been losing several games in a row, and they needed to do this. But I am not ready to anoint them as anything other than a potential playoff team. Now, contrast that with the Browns, who have beaten the people they should have beaten until they beat Tennessee, who, that's a quality opponent. They showed that even though Tennessee's defense isn't that great, they showed that they can score a lot of points and still beat that team. And really, they kind of had the whole game in hand through the first half. It was 38-7. So I don't know. To me, we've been asking Baker Mayfield to go out and prove it against good opponents. We've been asking him that all year. We've been criticizing him all year. Finally goes out and he does play well in a game that matters against a good opponent. I think he's going to end up doing the same thing in this game. Honestly, I have much less confidence in the Ravens, and I think the Browns are going to win.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Baker Mayfield played great. The Titans are, their defense is not what it was last year,
No.
obviously. And they did what any team is going to do. The Browns have the number one rushing offense in the league. You're going to stack the box, make Baker Mayfield consistently beat you. He will not do that week in and week out. Every now and then you have a game like that, you catch fire and you throw darts all around. Great win for the Cleveland, not taking anything away from the win. They're 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're 9-3. But just like we're saying, pump the brakes on Lamar Jackson, pump the brakes on the Cleveland Browns. Yes, they're going to be in the playoffs. But that's about it. They may even get to the divisional round, depending on who the matchup is. But but I I don't see them as making a deep run in the playoffs. Now, Baltimore, yeah, Cleveland's defense is not that impressive. The Tennessee did not play well offensively until the second half of that football game last week for some whatever reason. And again, yes, Tennessee's good. Have the Browns beaten an elite quarterback?
No.
Because that's who you're going to see in the playoffs. So now I'm not saying Lamar Jackson is elite, but would you take Lamar Jackson or Ryan Tannehill?
I'd probably take Ryan Tannehill actually this year.
Well, I'm talking about overall. If you had to start a franchise right now, which quarterback would you take?
That's a good question. Put me on the spot there. I'd probably take Tannehill.
See, I would take Lamar Jackson. Yes,
Yeah,
they people have figured him out, but he is more dynamic than Tannehill is.
true.
He has that potential to throw for 250 and run for 100. And when you have that, it makes it difficult to defend. And that's where I see Cleveland could struggle. You got to remember, this Ravens roster is not much different from week one, and the Ravens beat Cleveland 38-6. Now, Cleveland's playing a lot better. I'll give them that. It's not going to be a 38-6 shellacking. But I still think the Ravens are going to win this game. I'm not impressed with them beating the Cowboys because they should have. But it is one of those, I think, hey, see, we can do this. Um, you know, and I think Baker comes back down to earth, and the Ravens will win in a close game. To give themselves an opportunity to make the playoff or to get in the playoffs. I'm looking at the Cleveland Browns schedule. I mean, this is the part of the NFL. You have to, how good you are. You lose to Lamar Jackson, you beat Joe Burrow, you beat, at the time, I don't who I don't even know who the starter was for Washington beginning of the year. Um,
Yeah, I don't know Dwayne Haskins or Kyle
that's Kyle Allen.
Kyle Allen or
It wasn't Dwayne Haskins. I know that.
All right.
Then you beat Dak. Beat Dak Prescott. I'll give him that.
Yep.
You beat an old Philip Rivers. That I don't think Philip Rivers is an elite quarterback in the league
Not anymore.
anymore.
No.
You lost to Ben Roethlisberger. You beat Joe Burrow again by 3. You lost to Derek Carr. You beat Deshaun Watson. I don't know if Deshaun Watson he's one of the better quarterbacks. I wouldn't put him in that elite category yet.
Well, that and they're that's just not a good team. So
You lost to the Eagles, or you beat the Eagles. You beat the Jaguars. Then you beat Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. Yes, the Titans are a good team, but Tannehill's not a dynamic quarterback.
he's
And
not elite. No.
and I'm going to say this. If people are like, "Oh, that game was in hand," Tennessee came back and made it a 6-point game. You were up, what,
38-7.
38-7 at halftime.
Yeah.
And in the second half, you scored 3 points.
And I
That's
get that there's probably some coasting going on, but still.
but you can't do that. You
Yeah.
can't do that. You have the Ravens. Okay, then you have the Giants, who are playing better defense. If the Giants
Mm-hmm.
win this week, that's going to be an interesting game.
It
Then
will
you got
be.
then you got the Jets, but then you finish with the Steelers, and that could
Mm-hmm.
be a huge game.
Yep.
Um,
It will be. I think it will
so
be.
if you beat the Ravens, you win your next three, then I may start getting a little bit on the Cleveland bandwagon. I'm not. I will not buy into their stock this year unless they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they're not going to
Because
do that.
you look at this strength of schedule, and it's one of the worst in the league for strength of schedule.
Yeah.
So,
And I will say this: I think for me, Coach, I'm less on the Cleveland bandwagon than I am more on the not the Ravens bandwagon. I think it's more like that. It's just I've just been more and more unimpressed with the way that they've been, and I know they've had a lot of COVID issues. Putting that aside, though, they've had a lot of disconnect issues offensively, and it just bugged me. I mean, it doesn't look to me like this team does not impress me right now. Last year they're on a tear. They won 14 games. Lamar Jackson's on a tear. This year they started out strong, but they certainly have not been playing that way lately. So I think it's more for me just being more down on the Ravens than up on the Browns.
all right. And again, I'm picking the Ravens, and I think you said you're picking the Browns.
Browns. Yep. Yep. So those are all the games that I had on my list that I wanted to talk about. A couple that we spent a little more time on. I didn't have any other game highlighted or circled, so I didn't know if there was another one you wanted
Nope,
to mention.
I have none. Just a real quick pick. I don't want to get into it, but pick Packers Lions game. I'm going with the Packers. Their offense is humming, and Mister I want to have fun. Got lucky against the Bears. Daryl Bevel comes back to reality.
Yeah, I agree. The Packers are going to destroy the Lions in that game because, yes, lucky against the Bears, and we'll get into the Bears later when we talk about coaches.
Yeah. All right. So next topic, I want to go get to this storyline that is out there that the NFC East can get two teams into the playoffs. Um, it's actually been in a lot of different media outlets. Yes, mathematically they can, but I mean, oh my God, if both these teams win out, I will probably crap myself.
There's a lot of things that have to happen for them to even make the playoffs if they were even both 9-7 anyway. So yeah,
You know,
um,
and so this whole thing, and then they haven't gone and say it, but that they're alluding that the Giants are going to be able to make a playoff run. They haven't come out and
yeah,
said it, but there are some people that have commented and implied it that said, you know what, they admit the Giants are probably going to be like 7-9, 8-8 at best. But they're like, oh, they'll win their first playoff game, and it's the playoffs, and they have momentum, and you never know what's going to happen. Do you think that either Washington or New York, whichever team ends up winning the East, because whichever team wins the East is going to have momentum going to playoffs because they're playing well, have any shot of getting I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they may be able to get to the divisional round because they have a home game. But do you think either of them have a chance to get to the conference championship game?
I would say the chance of either one of them making the conference championship game is about 1%. Because I won't say zero, just because you never know what might happen. Like the team playing may not make it to the stadium or something, but that's the 1%. So outside of that, no. Let's come back down to earth on this one. You were mentioning that a little earlier. This conference, this division, excuse me, this division is not any. It's not good. It is not good. These teams are both 5-7 for a reason, and yes, they've played better lately, but that does not make them really good football teams. And when it comes to the postseason, especially for a team like the Giants, you have to have elevated quarterback play. So I would give Washington the edge in terms of where they're at, because Alex Smith, he has some experience. He's a guy that, may end up being something you can rely on in the postseason and be more steady. If the Giants make the playoffs, I don't know who's going to start. Colt McCoy, maybe Daniel Jones is back. But I'm sorry, he is inconsistent. Until he cleans up his turnover issues, you cannot rely on him in the postseason to be that guy. So these teams really have no shot at making the championship game, much less the Super Bowl. There's a 0% chance of either one of them making the Super Bowl. I'll say it. I don't care. 0% chance.
I agree. I mean, Daniel Jones would have to come back and just start throwing darts all over the field. I love the Alex Smith story, but let's be honest. Again, you look at the teams they're playing. Yes, I understand. They upset the Steelers. Blah 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 blah. Because people are going to roast me for, look what they did. That was one game. It's going to happen. The Steelers were due to lose. Seattle hasn't been playing well. I was not horribly shocked that either of those. We picked the Washington win.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
Picked it last week.
We expected it to happen.
But anybody that's going to sit there and say, "Oh no, we picked that game," to us that wasn't an upset.
No.
That we
thought it was going to happen. We both picked it. Yeah.
The Giants over Seattle was a little bit of an upset, but Seattle's just not playing well offensively. Yeah. I just don't see how either of those teams match up with Green Bay or New Orleans.
Right. And I'll say this, you know this, Coach, because you've been coaching for a long time. The playoffs are different than the regular season. You might go out there and you might beat a team that's better than you in the regular season. But when it comes to the postseason, things are just different.
Exactly. 2013, we lost to the team that was our conference champion, second round of the playoffs. We have to go to their stadium again, where they beat us handily, and we beat them in the playoffs. So it's different. It's a different beast. So it can happen. I don't think it will this year. I don't think this is another Seattle win a playoff game situation. I just don't think that's going to happen. So,
I agree.
So, the NFC East is not a beast again. They're still the NFC least until they actually have teams that could compete with the top teams in the conference. They might be able to knock off, Seattle, even LA, maybe Tampa Bay. I don't think they can compete with Green Bay or New Orleans.
Right.
So
I agree. Yeah.
Moving on. Yeah, and we're going to talk about this, but we'll reference it later on in the show in another segment also. This week, a loudmouth former NFL coach came out and said he believed if the Browns get this level of play from Baker Mayfield, They are Super Bowl contenders. What's your take on that? You know my take. I don't believe it. I mean, he can't continue that. And even if we go with he's going to do that, they still gave up 35 points. They're not a Super
So
Bowl caliber team.
my reaction to that comment is, well, I won't insanely laugh on this show because I don't think we want to have insane laughter, but just absolute laughter, chuckles. Okay, look, you've said it, and I don't want anybody to mistake what I was saying earlier. Like when we were talking about it, when I think the Browns beat the Ravens, the Browns are not a Super Bowl team. The Browns are absolutely not a Super Bowl team. Okay, I think I'm clear. So, no, I don't know why people think that. People have been high on Baker Mayfield ever since he was taken. We have not. He hasn't proven anything to anybody yet. I don't get why people are so high on this guy when he hasn't proven anything yet. He hasn't shown that he's that guy. Okay. Most of these games are not winning because of him. They have, like you said, the best rushing offense in the NFL. Well, that's something that they've relied on. And then some games defensively they've played well, so they've been able to rely on that. And this team is having a winning season this year. Yeah, exactly. Has more commercials and playoff wins. Exactly. That's a comment from somebody that's in our show right now. Yeah, I agree. It's you go out and prove it, and then I'll believe in you. So sorry, Browns, and sorry, loudmouth coach, ex-coach. You're
So,
incorrect.
and you'll find out who this coach is later on in the show when we get to another segment. So I agree. Cleveland is yes, they're having a nice year. They're having a nice year, and great for them. It's about time that they have a good season. But to sit there and say that they're a Super Bowl contender because Baker Mayfield had one good half of football. It's a half. Again, I said it before. They scored 38 points in the first half and then 3 in the second half. What happened? It can't be all just, oh, they went conservative.
Right.
Play a full game. If you play a full game, he would have had 4, maybe 450, maybe 5 touchdowns. Then we'll talk. Um, it's nice they might get in, they might, and wherever they sit, they're probably going to be the 5 seed. Have to go play the 4 seed, which right now would be Tennessee rematch.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're going to go to Tennessee or it'll be either Tennessee or Indianapolis, whoever wins the South.
Right.
And I like either of those teams versus Cleveland.
Sure.
So
Sure. And it's funny because Cleveland has beat both of those teams
bring back
in the
Johnny. I agree.
regular
Johnny
season.
Johnny Manziel was at least entertaining to watch.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny. Cleveland has beat both of those teams in the regular season, but in the postseason, I give the edge to both of those teams over Cleveland.
Yeah.
One, they both have experience, especially the Titans, obviously recently, last year. This is a different animal in the playoffs. So, yeah, go out, win a game that matters, play well throughout the whole game, and then we'll start really giving you the respect that you deserve because you're showing that you can. You're showing you can do it.
Right. So, sorry, everybody. The Browns are not Super Bowl contenders, and we move on. We are pushing on. Before we do keep them or leave them in the hot seat, I do want to touch on the non-football related stories. Right, yeah. He exactly. And what the Titans did against the the Browns, they dared Baker Mayfield to beat them. And he
Right.
did. Good for them. And Mike Vrabel's probably sitting there and be like, we were rolling the dice there. When you have a quarterback you don't think can beat you, but that you have a running game like the Browns do, you stack the box and make the quarterback beat you. And every now and then that happens. He can't consistently do it.
Right. He
Won't be able
hasn't.
to. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah. So, but I want to touch on a couple of stories before we get into those other um, the other
Just
topic.
before we get into the other topics, yeah. Yep. Yep.
So I'm not sure if you heard uh, Mike Krzyzewski's post game loss news conference against Illinois, and he questioned why they're playing college basketball right now. I guess they already in the season they've have over 200, no, not is it, yeah, like over 250 canceled games.
Mm-hmm.
And so he questioned why they're playing. Well, today, the head coach of Alabama, I believe, came out and accused Mike Krzyzewski of not wanting to play because he has two losses,
Right. Yeah, I saw
not
that.
because of the seriousness of COVID.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I first saw the headline, that's what popped to my mind. But then when you actually listen and get context of stuff, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense now. Why he's saying that? Because I didn't know how many games were canceled, and everything that he was referencing. So what's your take on that? Do you think a college basketball should continue to be played? And B, what do you think of a coach accusing one of the most successful coaches in college basketball history
Right.
of not wanting to play because he
Well,
has two losses?
yeah, I mean, first of all, as far as the whether they should still be playing, no, I have a really hard time with that because look how many games have been canceled right now.
Yeah.
There's been so many. It's a cluster,
It,
and they can't figure this thing out to save anything.
and we've totally avoided um this whole college sport
Right,
topic
right.
because it's such a mess. You just look at college football right now; it's an
Hmm.
utter disaster.
It is. It
It,
is. Yeah.
you're right, Captain Jimmy. It says not even high school should be playing ball. We got our season in, and it was draining, just mentally draining on everybody having to follow all these rules and regulations. Are we going to play this week? Are we not going to play this week? This and that. Um, it's good for the kids to have some normalcy, but at the same time, there were times where we're like, is this even worth it mentally for these kids?
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so I agree. I'm a coach. I want to be coaching, but at the same time, we have kids wearing masks to play basketball.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. That's exactly that's the problem with that. And in college, it's even harder to police all of this stuff. So
right.
kids are going out, kids are going to parties, and I mean, there's a lot of different reasons as to why they're getting COVID or why these things are happening, but it's really just kind of a cluster. And we talked about this before. What are you going to do when March Madness rolls around and you've got one team that has 30 games played and one team that has 18 games played because they had so many different games canceled? I mean, what are you going to do seeding wise?
Well, right. Well, exactly. And like Captain Jimmy is commenting, he's you know,
Yeah.
um, kids are dumb, and yeah, exactly. They aren't going to listen to their coaches and say, don't go out, don't go in large crowds, don't do these things and put yourself and our team at risk. They're
Right.
not going to listen.
No.
Um, we had a
No, they
hard
don't.
time with high school kids, and they don't have, as many options of going out as college kids do. So,
Right.
um, you know, but you know, it's one of those things where we really have to look at why we're doing what we're doing, not just um, yeah, right now, Captain Jimmy, the school I teach at, our high school, we are completely virtual. Next week, our younger kids, our elementary kids, come back alternating days because the uh, infection rate or whatever it is really low in our elementary school and in our middle school, but in our high school, it's kind of out of control. So our high school, we're totally remote already.
Right.
So
Right.
um,
And the hard part about that is, so you think about college, you look at that, and how do they, they could do that, but a lot of these places in college, that's the difference between a lot of these high schools and college. These college places are money driven. They're
right.
all these athletic programs. They're monetarily driven, so they want to get their teams back out there. They want to have big time games that are out there, and that's the problem with the college sports, basketball and football. Really, I mean, a lot of other ones, but that's
Well,
one of the
yeah,
biggest problems.
and like you're talking about the March Madness. My question is, so say you're able to get a season in, you get to March Madness, you get to the Elite Eight, team beats that wins that Elite Eight game, goes to the Final Four, but then that in the Final Four they can't play because of COVID. What do you do?
Right. Yeah. What do you do?
What do
Yeah.
you do? Do you just give a team a forfeit win into the championship game, or do you take the team that they lost to in that lost in the Elite Eight and let them play? It's just it's a cluster. I
Yeah.
don't get how the
How they're going
mindset
to be able
works.
to pull something
But
like that off.
Mike
Yeah, I
Krzyzewski
agree.
even said, he said the NCAA is more worried about the March Madness tournament, and you hit it right on the head, Lone Wolf,
Hmm.
because of money.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yep.
needs to shit, and we gotta be careful. I think with a complete shutdown again. If we're gonna do it, then everything, including these WalMarts and all these huge places, need to shut down. Also, they need to tell everybody go stock up for 2 weeks and
Right. And
hunker
just
down.
do it. Yeah.
But if
Yeah. I
we're
mean, a
gonna
Home
sit
Depot, I'm sorry, a Home
right,
Depot is not an essential business. I can survive without going to Home Depot for two
exactly.
weeks, you know? So,
If they're saying we're going to lock down, shut everything down, but yet Walmart, Menards, and all these
right.
big businesses are still open, to me, that's not a shutdown.
No,
That
not at all.
that's
No,
we're going to let the
not at all.
corporate people, still run the country, and smaller businesses, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
So I agree. That there should be, we are heading in that direction. I hope
Hmm.
we don't have to go there. Hopefully, again, we're getting a little off topic, but
Yeah.
hopefully,
Well, and I think
hopefully,
it goes back to sports in terms of the way we were just talking about this, in mentioning, the money and the greed and what's involved. That's the thing that's involved with these college sports. So they don't have a great plan, and they just say, okay, we're having a season, we're going to do it, great. But then you go out there, and we criticize the Big Ten in terms of the football last time when we were talking about this, and now college basketball is going out there, and they're trying to play games, but it's a complete disaster.
right.
But all these big colleges want to go out there and they want to do this stuff. but it's just really driven by the money. So
Exactly.
yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah.
Um,
So
so
as far as Nate Oates calling out Coach K, though, I mean that I gotta say, that takes some cojones, man. I mean, to be
I
able to do
agree.
that,
I absolutely agree.
you're calling out the guy who's a gold medalist, one of the like living icons of basketball, and you're calling him to the carpet because you're saying, hey, you're losing, so that's why you're doing. In a way, I mean, I like Coach K. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of like him calling him out, but at the same time, I'm like, well, Coach K is not wrong. I mean, he's probably voicing that because it's the way he really feels. But um, yeah, in a way, I kind of like the calling him out.
I mean,
Maybe that's part of it.
I don't mind the call out.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't mind the call out, but at the same time, he then said we need to be playing games for our athletes' mental health and this and that. And so
yeah,
I don't agree with that. I
right, yeah,
agree that we need that we all need to have social interaction, but you can do that without playing basketball.
right,
So his justification of why we need to continue playing was
yeah.
way
No, I
off
agree.
base.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't mind calling him out. He made an observation and he voiced it. I like
right.
that. I like people that are front. We voice our opinions on the show all the
Oh
time.
yeah, all the time. Yeah,
Even if we're way off base in some people's minds, but we just don't care. It's our
right.
observation. It's what we feel is correct. So,
Yeah, yep.
um,
And
you
if we're
know,
wrong about stuff too, I mean, we'll
all right,
wrong
well,
about a game, wrong about a thing, we'll call it out. So fine. Yeah.
so moving on, one more non NFL story here.
Yep.
Big news this morning because the NBA season has kicked off their training camp. The first preseason games are this week. A lot of speculation if Giannis is going to sign. Um, I this is just leading into the story. But you look at some of the moves that these other teams are making that were supposedly really going to go all in on Giannis. The
Right.
Lakers, well, they re-signed Davis and gave LeBron an extension. They no longer have the
They don't
uh,
have the capability to bring him
capability
in.
of getting
Yeah.
him. You have Miami, who just now re-signed their top guy,
Right.
which hurts their chances of getting Giannis.
Yeah.
So,
And that was
so
a
the
huge
suitors
contract.
for
Yeah.
Giannis, I think, see the writing on the wall that
Right.
even if he doesn't sign it right now, when it gets to the end of the season, he's signing it. Because no other team can give him as much money as Milwaukee, even if he goes into free agency. He'd be going to play somewhere else uh, to win a title, but nowhere that he could go now has that like core superstars already there that you add him and now it puts one at the top. That's not out there anymore. Maybe the Nets, but I'm not sure where that would if you'd want to go there. But that's for a
Right.
different discussion. This leads me to the news this morning that James Harden tweeted out his top two destinations where he wants to
Yep.
be traded. Number one, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
And there have been some potential trade packages already that some sites have posted out there. And the Bucks could do it. They could actually, realistically trade for James Harden. And I'll tell you right now, if they would trade for James Harden, Giannis would sign in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And
You already went out there and you picked up Drew Holiday, and if you were to sign James Harden, I mean, look out
Yeah.
NBA.
And yes, you'd get so in this one package, I think any package that would include Harden, you'd have to give up Chris Middleton.
Yes.
So it's fine.
It's a
James Harden, Chris Middleton. I'm going to take James Harden. Sorry,
yeah.
Chris Middleton. You're a great young player, but you're not James Harden.
No. Yeah,
Um,
and if you're Milwaukee, you have to give up something quality to
right,
get James Harden, and there's no
right.
question about that. And
Um,
why
then
wouldn't you though?
and then this package also has DiVincenzo in it. So those two players plus DJ Wilson.
Yeah.
Um, then Sam Merrill, their second round draft pick for this year. And then um, a package of picks,
Right. Yeah.
draft
Yeah.
picks. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. James Harden, I think, I mean, he's playing with a little bit of fire here
Mm-hmm.
because he's under contract for 2 more years. But at the
Right.
same time, now that he has come out, because before he was just saying, he wasn't really publicly coming out and saying, I
Right.
want to go here.
Yeah. Now he has called it out.
He has called it out now. And
Yeah,
I don't
and these
believe it's
guys, I mean,
reported to
Giannis and
camp.
him, I mean, they've kind of gone back and forth a little bit. They're not like best friends or anything. So,
Right.
um,
But here's the thing.
yeah,
I don't believe Harden has reported to training camp. And if he did, he's not very happy.
he just did.
Every day that he is there and teams know that he wants to be traded,
Yeah,
Houston loses leverage to get a good deal.
right.
Because teams are like, we'll just ride it out. Eventually, it's going to be so unbearable, they're going to just have to take whatever's offered. So, obviously, we're not going to know what's going on here, but I'll tell
Hmm.
you right now, I hope Milwaukee is trying to make this deal happen.
Oh,
Because
I hope so too. Yeah,
it doesn't matter what your bench looks like. If
right.
you have Holiday, Harden, Giannis, and then you'd have Lopez. Yeah, you gotta find one other guy to throw on the court. I'm sure I'm missing somebody that's decent that they have on their roster. Uh,
Well, and they pulled together a few nice pieces that they probably won't have to get rid of.
oh
Like
yeah,
good role players, like we were talking about, like DJ Augustine or
Taylor,
somebody. I
yeah,
mean, they've got a
and
few people.
Augustine. So they got guys. Uh,
Yeah,
so pull Milwaukee. If you're listening, do the deal.
do this deal.
Do the deal. That would be awesome because I'll tell you right now, if the Milwaukee Bucks went to the NBA Finals, I still have friends that live in Milwaukee. I'm going to have them get tickets, and I'm going to a game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and look, I mean, if this is the case, and they were able to pull this off, to me, Milwaukee becomes the beast of the East, first of all,
Oh yeah.
and second of all, I mean, I think and they'd be maybe the odds-on favorite to win the title next year.
Well, I think people are still drinking the Laker Kool-Aid,
Yeah, yeah, and people would say the Lakers would be, but
which is
I
fine.
would
But
say 55-45 Bucks Lakers. I don't know. I mean,
but
I feel
here's
like
the
they had a
thing.
better chance.
Okay, so you face the Bucks if they get Harden. You face the Bucks. Okay, you're gonna say guy Giannis. Okay, James Harden's gonna sit there and shoot the lights out.
Yeah,
Okay, now you're gonna try to do a box and one on Harden. And now your Giannis is gonna pound you inside all night long. Oh,
right.
then you got Holiday too. You forgot about him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The Bucks need the big three. This is the new big three. Yeah, come on.
Come on, Milwaukee. You said you'd do anything to keep Giannis. I'll tell you right now, you get Harden, he will sign that Supermax deal.
Oh, he'll sign that the same day.
So,
Yeah.
all right, moving on. We get to our keep them or leave them. And Lone Wolf, you have the keep 'em or leave 'em list.
Well, yeah, I came up with some. We'll see if you have any other ones that you want to throw out there, but these are just some that came to my mind. I've got a couple of good ones, I think, in here. So we didn't touch on a couple of these last week, and then there's a few that I came up with. So I will go ahead and I will just throw them out there. You let me know what you think, and then if you got any other ones, you go ahead and throw them out to talk about. So first, keep them or leave them. 49ers is a playoff team.
Leave them. Leave them.
Okay. Ravens as a playoff team.
Whew, that's a good one. Um, man, I'm gonna go. I'm trying to think of the current. No, I'm gonna leave them. They're too far out of it right now.
Okay.
Even if they win this week, leave them.
Yeah, you got Browns, Colts, Titans,
They,
um,
they have to
there's
make
yeah,
up.
there's a
They
bunch.
have to
Yeah,
make up two games
Dolphins.
in four.
Right.
Not gonna happen.
All right. This is an easy one. Jets going 0 and 16.
Oh, I'm keeping that. I'm I'm keeping that.
I figured. All right. Raiders with Pat Gunther as their defensive coordinator next year.
Leave them.
Okay. Cardinals as a playoff team.
Leave them.
Jimmy Garoppolo as San Francisco quarterback next year.
Leave them.
And then, of course, I had to sneak this in here. Brian Flores as coach of the year.
Whew, that's a good one. Because I'll tell you what, there's a lot of traction for Joe Judge, um, in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could also say, um, Stefanski in
Stefanski
Cleveland.
in Cleveland. Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, really like Brian Flores. I I don't think any of the guys I just mentioned are going to be coach of the year. Um, so I'm going to actually leave him
Okay.
because I just think there's too many good candidates. My coach of the year is McVay in LA. I did
Oh,
not
sure.
expect
Yeah.
the Rams to be 9-4 at this point of the season.
Right.
And anybody that says, "Oh, I thought they would be," bull. I'm gonna call your bull because it was
Right.
Seattle and the 49ers, and nobody was even thinking about the Rams.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, even though we thought they'd be putrid, other people probably thought they'd be average, but to be where they are right now,
Yeah,
um, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So my vote would be McVay if I had a vote.
yeah.
So I don't have anything else like keep him or leave him.
I don't either. Those are the ones that I wanted to go through. At a couple I thought that were really good. A couple maybe is not as good, but um, you know, I I'm going with most of those leave them too. I mean, for me, I agree. The Ravens, I think leave them as a playoff team. They're not going to make the postseason this year. Um, again, I picked against them this week, but I just feel like there's too many other teams in the AFC, better records, better chance at getting into the postseason. And well, I totally agree with the Jets going on 16. They can't find a way to win a game even when they should, and the whole team is just a debacle. So yeah, um, and I wanted to sneak that one with the Raiders in there because this is your adopted team here. I
Yep.
think that this defense has really kind of come under fire lately, and they haven't been playing that well. And getting shellacked by the Falcons like that, I don't know. I mean, I know it's only one game, but just defensively, they haven't had a lot of strong showings. And if they really want to be a true elite team and hang with Kansas City in that division, they're going to have to pick it up on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and yeah, and that's it. They're gonna be there's probably gonna be some changes on the coordinators throughout the league. I think Um, you may even see, unless Green Bay makes it to the Super Bowl, you could see them making a change at the defensive coordinator position also.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
for sure.
would not shock me at all, to be honest.
No.
Um, so, but that is keep 'em or leave 'em. Next up, our weekly hot seat, and we had texted back and forth about this numerous times, and uh, there's going to be some surprises. Going to be some surprises here, but there always is. There always is. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah. So I'm gonna let you. I started out, I think, last week. I'm gonna let you
Yeah.
go ahead and start out. Um,
Well, and I think it's easy to start, at least from the standpoint of, again, just so we have the disclaimer basically out there, Adam Gase is on the Walking Dead list. He's not on the hot seat list. To us, he was fired a long, long time ago. Should be gone. So just get that out of the way right away. Um, we played a soundbite from him last week, and I think that explained pretty much everything you needed to know about Adam Gase. This week, as far as my number 5, my list hasn't changed a lot, but um, man, I don't know. It's hard. So I'm going to keep good old Mike McCarthy at number 5. They lost against the Ravens. They didn't really look that great, but he didn't really do anything to tell me that he is that much worse than where I thought he was before. And I really wonder as to whether he's going to be gone next year or not. Um, we've talked about this a few times. Is Jerry going to admit his mistake? I was talking to my dad about that this week, and he's like, "Oh, Jerry admit a mistake, and he'd rather probably die before he admits a mistake." So Mike McCarthy may end up coming back, which is why he keeps falling to the bottom of my list of coaches on the hot seat, because he may actually still retain his job next year.
all right. Well, my hot list has changed quite a bit,
Oh, okay, all right,
and you'll find out why at the end.
okay,
My number 5, and this is because really coaches on the hot seat have been fired.
right,
Matt Patricia gone,
yeah.
Bill O'Brien gone, um,
Dan Quinn
Dan
gone,
Quinn
yeah.
gone. So my number 5 is a newcomer to the list.
Oh, okay, all right.
Newcomer, and I don't think he's going to get fired. I think the front office understands the situation they're in, but if they really stumble, if they don't show stability these last 4 games, it wouldn't surprise me if they moved on. But that's Vic Fangio.
Oh, okay, all right,
The Denver
sure.
Broncos is my
Hmm.
number 5 on my hot list.
Yeah, and I see kind of what's going on there, and I don't think that they will move on from him. I debated on whether I should shake up my list and put him on there, but I left him off for now. I think he's one of those that they probably will still give him another chance, and I don't feel like he's really kind of been under fire this year. So my number 4 is, and the thing I really struggled with my list is there's a couple guys who I kind of wanted to put on the Walking Dead list almost, and I might actually add somebody else to the list. So this is where I struggled. Um, but my number 4, yeah, well, I almost thought about doing this, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to go with Anthony Lynn from the Chargers. Um, you got blown out by the Patriots, and basically to me, anybody number 4 and up on my list, it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to lose your job at the end of this year. Number 5, maybe, maybe not, but number 4, you for sure are. You're gone at the end of the year. So Anthony Lynn is my number 4.
Good. That's a good choice. And I debated having him there. But my number 4 is going to be Mike McCarthy. Another stinker of a game. Um, things just they don't look inspired at all to be playing there. It looks like the Cowboys from the at right after Emmett and Aikman and all those guys retired and just looked like shambles. It looks like that old team before Tony Romo was the quarterback. So I just don't know how you can continue to see that. You should have seen that by just watching the Mike McCarthy's last year in Green Bay.
Right.
But like you said, will he be fired? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. My 4 and 5 probably will not lose their job, which is good for NFC teams because it's not going to get any better next year, even if you have Dak Prescott back.
Right.
So
Because, like
Mike
you said
McCarthy,
earlier, in an earlier show, you were lighting things up offensively with Dak Prescott, and you were still finding lots of ways to lose games.
right? So Mike McCarthy is my number 4.
So my number 3 is a guy that, this team is in shambles. And really my list, and I'm still struggling with this, but I think I'm probably going to just do it. My number 3 is Doug Peterson and the Eagles. He, to me, and I believe this, like I said, my 4 and up, they're gone. Peterson, what is going on in Philadelphia offensively? Because I really don't have any idea, and I don't think he's showing that he does right now either. It doesn't seem like there's any confidence in Wentz, although Wentz has played poorly throughout the course of the season, but they haven't been running the football well. They haven't really been doing anything well. And people overreacted, as they always will, with Jalen Hurts, like we talked about last week. But I think there's very unforgiving situation in Philadelphia, and Doug Peterson is on the list.
All right, my number 3, Coach, you have already alluded to on this list. And the reason I think he will be let go is he's been there now multiple years. You had a good quarterback, a veteran quarterback before this year, and couldn't get things done. And now they're kind of retooling and getting the younger roster. So I think they're going to move on to a new coach, and that's Anthony Lynn. I mean, but granted, they have a better record than the Bengals, and I don't think Zach Taylor's going to get fired. So,
No.
you know, maybe they keep Lynn. I don't think they will. But Anthony Lynn's my number 3.
I'll tell you what, though. I think that Zach Taylor starts next year on the hot
Oh,
seat to begin the
absolutely.
year. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're going to have another top 5 pick. Joe Burrow will be back. Joe Mixon will be healthy. You're going to be expected not necessarily to make the playoffs, but be between that 6 to 8 wins. And
Right.
if you don't sniff that, you're gone. So
Yeah.
Zach Taylor,
Absolutely.
right now we are putting you on notice. You will be on the hot list starting next season. It doesn't matter what you do in the off season. You are on the hot seat next year. And if you
Right.
start out 1-5, 0-4, you're on the Walking Dead list.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So here's where I struggled with my list, but here's what I did, and this will make sense. So my number 2 is technically my number 1, and I'll explain that when we get there.
You can't cheat like that.
I'm not cheating.
You're
You'll see
cheating.
you see what happens.
Oh,
Okay,
I,
so my
I know
number
what you're
2.
doing. I know what you're doing.
Well,
You're
just
adding
wait
to
until I
the
get there.
Walking Dead
Fine.
list, but you don't have
Anyway,
a 5.
my number 2
Peter.
is Matt Nagy,
Oh.
who I guess technically, like I said, he'll end up going there. But Here's the thing. You go out and you lose to the Lions. You have no answers offensively for this team. And I don't care how many points you scored against the Lions. I don't care. Don't tell me they scored however many points they scored. I don't care. I know it was maybe 20 something, whatever. I really don't care. It's the Lions. So that doesn't win you a football game, and you're trending ever since your 5-1 start in the absolute wrong direction. This team is becoming more and more of a train wreck, and Matt Nagy is absolutely gone at the end of the season. Because let's just face it, folks, the Bears are not winning out. It's going to be bad, and Matt Nagy will be gone. Yeah, so he's my number 2, quasi number 1.
All right. My number 2, train wreck. He's mucked up the whole entire situation. I guess the whole organization's really messed it up with the huge contract extension that they gave Carson Wentz, and then you give him this nice big contract extension, and then you go out the next draft and draft a quarterback in the second round. And now people are going to say, whoa, well, look what the Packers did. Totally different situation. Aaron Rodgers is towards the tail end of his career. Carson Wentz should be in the prime of his career. So why are you giving him such a huge guaranteed contract if you don't have faith in him? And now you've benched Carson Wentz. You can't go back to Carson Wentz this season. You can't. He was asked this week that because Jalen Hurts is starting, who's going to start next week? Or are you going back to Carson? He goes, I don't know. We'll see. Not good. Not good at all.
And that's one of the reasons that you get yourself fired is because you can't decide on a starting quarterback.
If you've decided that it's time to evaluate Jalen Hurts and that he can give your offense a shot in the arm, you play him, thick or thin. You can't go back to Carson Wentz right now. Maybe in the offseason you go in, you have a quarterback competition because he's under contract. Nobody's going to trade with that contract. It's a guarantee, so you're not going to release him because you still got to pay him. You go in and have a quarterback competition in the offseason, but you cannot, unless Jalen Hurts gets hurt, you cannot go back to Carson Wentz. So, Doug Peterson, you are my number 2.
All right. So, this is what I was meaning, and you call me a cheater. I still have a number 1, so just back off. My number 1 is a guy who there was some fight in this team, and you saw them play close in a lot of different games. But to me, dropping this last game was inexcusable. But I mean, this is really why they're as bad as they are. And he's had time in this organization to show what he could do. He hasn't done that. It's just gotten worse. And this year they have one of the worst records in the NFL. But the reason that he's my number 1, but not really, is I'm taking Doug Marrone and I am moving him off the hot seat and officially putting him on the Walking Dead list under Adam Gase, because no one can beat Adam Gase. I'm sorry, you're the king of the Walking Dead list. Congratulations.
So we're gonna have to have our separate Walking Dead lists,
right?
Because my number 1 is also Doug Marrone, but I'm not putting him on the Walking Dead list.
Okay.
Because they have been in games.
Yeah.
With probably the worst roster in the NFL. Now, there's probably a 0.0000001% chance that he keeps his job. But there's still a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Saying there's a chance. So Doug Marrone is my number 1 on my hot list. Now, you're probably thinking, well, there's not a name on there on your hot list.
I think I know what you're going to do here.
I have officially moved Matt Nagy onto my Walking Dead list. Him and the GM are going to be gone from Chicago because people keep getting reminded that they passed on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. So, Matt Nagy, you, my friend, pack your bags. You are out of there in Chicago. Sorry. Sorry. Has to happen. Now, obviously, Adam Gase, they still have not come out and said, what their stance is. And there's a rumor is that the owner still likes Adam Gase.
I mean, you can like him as your pal, but you can't like him as your coach.
And there have been coaches that have gone 0-4 and have retained their job in the NFL. So
yeah,
it is not all your. I mean, I don't know how you'd bring him back, but you can. But I have the final straw for me. If I didn't have it already with Adam Gase, should have been this.
I was just gonna say, if you already weren't there.
He goes and fires Greg Williams for blowing this game. I challenge this because, yes, Greg Williams made that call. Greg Williams is an aggressive defensive coordinator. He's been that way his whole career, so it's not like it's new.
Yeah, Mr. Bountygate, yeah.
Okay. Adam Gase had a timeout sitting in his pocket. When he found out what was being called, why wouldn't you take a timeout and say, hold on here, buddy. I'm still in charge. We're not doing that.
Right.
So I have a clip of Jeff Saturday sounding off on Adam Gase for firing Greg Williams.
Oh, great. Yeah.
We have to
process that they're about
to have this stuff.
That's a very nice way of saying that they have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and that starts with ownership. And Chris Canty, let me come to you here on this, if we could, because Adam Gase,
actually, it's Chris Canty.
Whether it's his decision fully or not to make the firing of Greg Williams yesterday, what did you think of that?
I didn't understand why the Jets didn't ask Adam Gase to pack up his office as well. I mean, his key shard shouldn't work when he showed up to the building on Monday. But the fact is that this feels like another one of those situations where Adam Gase is deflecting responsibility away from his job. He's the head coach, and in an end-of-game situation like what took place on Sunday, he's got the headset on. He's got a timeout in his back pocket. Why didn't he use the timeout in that situation? I mean, you practice that, you drill that every single week in the National Football League. And even if you don't agree with the call, at least take the timeout so you can see what formation the Raiders are running, personnel grouping, and you can match it and get your very best play. He failed to do both of those. You can't just put it on Greg Williams. It's Adam Gase as well. The buck stops with him. He's the head coach.
Yeah, Jeff Saturday, what are your thoughts?
Absolute trash, Greeny. I mean, listen, this team has been awful. Whether the worst team offensively in the league and have been the entire season. Defensively, they rank one of the bottom. But to fire a guy after this call is absolutely ridiculous. Listen, he's an aggressive play caller, but he was in cover 3 a couple plays before where they overthrow Aguilar. So which play do you want to fire him for? Like, I mean, his defense isn't playing good. Your offense isn't playing good. I agree with Chris. Like, how are you going to blame this on one guy? And you know the call. That's the worst part of as a head coach. You knew the call. It didn't work out. So all of a sudden you're going to fire a guy with 4 weeks left. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Let him finish it out with the rest of you. You all know you're going to be fired at the end of the season. I just don't like putting it on placing the blame on one guy. Absolutely ridiculous.
On some level, you almost might say they did him a favor by not making him have to stick it out with the rest of us for these last 4 weeks and go spend the holidays with his family.
I had to let Mike Greenberg get to that point because that is hilarious. You might have saved him because he doesn't have to sit through this with the rest of us.
Exactly. And Greeny has been a Jets fan. He's very vocal about
he's
it.
a diehard
So,
Jets fan. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So again, you just continue to give Adam Gase. You continue to give. And I'll tell you right now, I'll do something crazy if Adam Gase is still employed as the Jets head coach next year. I don't know what it is. We'll have to come up with something.
Yeah.
Because if the Monday after the regular season ends and Adam Gase isn't fired, I'm going to be shocked. Absolutely shocked. So
I mean, it's been surprising enough, Coach, to see that this guy is still employed now. So okay, maybe the Jets have said, okay, fine, we'll take our lumps this season. We'll move on after the end of the season. But to think that this guy would not be fired and would come back next year. Okay, yes, there have been some coaches that have gone 0-16, 0-14, depending on when the era was. And they have come back. But there are so many things about the way that he coaches and the fact that he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't understand situations that are happening. Why would you want a guy to come back and do that? I mean, they talked, both of these guys talked about that just now in this clip you played. He had the timeout. He knew what the play was. He didn't do anything about it.
right.
That's on him. And then the clip we played last week, Adam Gase is like, what play was that? What are you talking about? When the reporters are asking him questions, he didn't even know what time in the game it was. And he's like, well, sometimes I'll step in there and I'll call plays on third down. So are you calling plays or not? Well, it just depends on, what time in the game was that? He didn't even know what was going on. He's
Right.
deflecting. He's making stuff up, and he doesn't know. He has no clue what is happening. So why would you want a guy on your sideline that really just does not know?
Exactly.
He's incompetent.
Hey, I'll tell you what. If they don't fire him, we have a whole nother season of clips, and we're gonna have video clips soon. So
That's right.
it's gonna be fun.
Man.
All right.
It's a free-for-all on him. Yeah.
The last segment of the show, new segment, the Beavis comment of the week. Now, I talked about this earlier, and I'm going to say it. A loudmouth former NFL coach who was not very successful made a comment that the Browns can be Super Bowl contenders, and I got the clip.
Okay.
And to be on your way to making the playoffs is in and of itself an accomplishment. But as you watch them, I know you think this is a team that can do more than that this January.
Yeah, absolutely. And it never took this game right here to tell me that. I said it the previous week that if they get average play from the quarterback position, this team can go deep in the playoffs. Well, if they get this Baker Mayfield, shoot, they can win it all. And so that's where you look at it, it's like.
So, Lone Wolf.
Okay, insane.
What's
that? To me, that sounds like Rex Ryan.
Ding, ding, ding. Rex Ryan, you are the winner of the Beavis comment of the week. The Browns are not going to win it all because guess what? Even if somehow you make it through the AFC, you're going to have to play probably either New Orleans or Green Bay, who have besides the Chiefs, have the two most dynamic offenses in the league, and your defense cannot withstand either of those teams.
No, not at all.
So
yeah, I look at that and I just, this is pretty typical for Rex. He's just that guy. He's a loudmouth. He'll make comments, and he's entitled to his opinion. Yeah, he's entitled to his opinion, but I agree with you, Coach. He's wrong. The Browns are not that team. It's 1 year. Pump the brakes, people. 1 year. You can go from zero to hero, but zero to hero is for the Browns going to the postseason. Okay, this is not a Super Bowl team.
Right. We said the same thing last year about I said the same thing last year at least about the Ravens. And now look, you have to do it multiple years in a row.
Right.
Slow down. Slow down. So they're having a great season. Let them enjoy it.
Yeah.
And let's just be realistic.
Yeah.
Yes, any team can, anything can happen, blah, 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 blah. But let's be realistic. The chances of the Chiefs laying an egg against a team like the Cleveland Browns are very slim.
Yeah. In the postseason, very slim.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, but that is it. That's our last segment, unless you have anything else, Lone Wolf.
No, I didn't have anything else to add.
All right. I'd like to thank everybody. Thank you for Captain Jimmy, who came into our show tonight and in the chat and joined us with some comments
there.
That's
yep.
great to see. Some days we get some, and the last couple of weeks it's been pretty quiet. But hey, that's the way it is. So we appreciate everybody's interaction. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Have a good night.